We were hearing from everybody yesterday, and I think we have discussed quite a bit about the basic theme. I think what is necessary is to go into the more or less the very heart, very core of the meaning of what we are doing in terms of getting a short summary of the basic theme that we have with us. So the basic argument for the elimination of police torture. What does police torture mean? If we ask that question and try to answer it, someone may ask, how do you know? That brings up the question, how do we know anything? That question has been asked throughout the ages. The answer that has emerged in the last few centuries is that it is by collection and observation of data that we get to know anything. The age has been symbolized by the telescope and the microscope. The way all questions about what something means are answered through observation and analysis of facts. What about the data of torture? That data is in the actual stories of the victims. The approach of studying torture through stories of victims is different to the study of mere statistics. Through these stories, accurately recorded, we can know what torture is and why it happens, and all other associated questions. What does the known data on torture tell us? What it tells us is of the contradictions of our institutions. It reveals to us the malfunctioning of the institutions, which defeats the possibility of achievement of rule of law. The study of torture is a study of the basic structure of our societies and what has gone wrong with it. It revealed to us the stupidity of the way our major institutions function. Thus, torture is not primarily about cruelty. It is much more about the study, about the stupidity that has become a part of the major institutions of our society. Asking a question like, what is the meaning of torture, is like asking the meaning of pneumonia, malaria, or other diseases like that. By now, the method of studying such diseases has been established, and the same principles can be used to the study of the diseases that affects of our social institutions. Democracy without functioning institutions is a meaningless expression. Democracy is about functioning public institutions. The measure of well-functioning institutions is the way these institutions are capable of functioning under the rule of law. When a public institution is dysfunctioning from the point of view of the rule of law, it means that much of the institution has ceased to be an institution of democracy, but instead it has become something else. In our societies, the police torture, where police torture is widespread, what we are experiencing are public institutions which has become something else. Maybe may not have gone as far as totalitarianism, or may have not gone the whole way towards that. But we can be sure that if these institutions continue to be like this, the direction is towards the abandoning of democracy altogether. In countries where there is a widespread use of torture, there is also a belief, particularly among the leaders and the operators of the public institutions, that policing without torture is impossible. However, the opposite is true, that proper policing with torture is impossible. And that is what we are experiencing. That today there is no policing in the sense of democratic policing within a rule of law. It has become impossible because of torture. While the people keep on saying without torture is policing is impossible. So there is something very crooked about that logic. The above reflections are on the very basic to a discussion we had yesterday. As for AHRC, these discussions started almost 15 years back, and we have stubbornly continued with this methodology of studying torture through the accurately recorded stories of victims by the work done day in and day out. The documentations that we have with us is the testimony of the pursuit about the finding of the meaning of torture through such study of stories. Our maxim those days was from the micro to the macro, which means to know through the stories of torture victims the problems or the basic structure of our society. We have what we know about these stories, and the knowledge we have about the basic structure of our societies is explained in a very different way to what we normally know and declare about our societies. This is why the study of the widespread practice of torture and the exposure of the vital parts of undoing this wrong on the basic structure of our society is a very essential aspect. It is from the point of view of dealing with the issue of police torture become an unavoidable task to anyone who is committed to the pursuit of democracy in our societies. Elimination of the police torture is one of the most primary tasks in working towards democratization. It is a practical way of getting about undoing the institutional obstacles to democracy. It is a widespread, this approach that the Asian Human Rights Commission is placing before this meeting. In particular, in asking the legislators to take the approach seriously in the study of developing a fight against fight for the establishment of democracy. Elimination of torture and enabling the freedom of speech are inseparably linked. When the possibility of practice of torture is reduced, if not eliminated, the psychological condition for the freedom of speech are thereby created. And the core element of democracy is the freedom of speech. It is through the freedom of speech that we are able to get the views of many, and if not all, and thereby to develop a collective consciousness with the participation of all of us. Thus, the development of civic consciousness and the development of people's participation and the elimination of torture are essentially linked. See, what we are placing through this study is that we are not studying some side aspect of democracy and rule of law when we talk about torture. We are getting to the very heart of the problem. The people must have the capacity to participate. And when our institutions function irrationally, we cannot participate. The problem of participation can be possible only through public institutions. I fail to understand that in a country like my country in Sri Lanka, where we all agree that all our basic institutions have collapsed, we are talking about the possibility of democracy. This is like when your heart and the lung and the kidney fails, you still talk about living a healthy life. This nonsensical idea, we all in the 2001 in our parliament, we unanimously parliament decided to do something about a tremendous wrong that is happening, that the systems have collapsed. The whole 17th Amendment was an attempt to correct that, not to cure that, but to have some kind of correction. So we are all agreed, our institutions have failed. So what is the democracy that we are talking about? What is the rule of law that we are talking about? So unless we fight back to get the institutions functioning, we are as much as is far better to give up and stay at home than to claim to be Democrats. The very idea of Democrats is to get the public institutions functioning. And the vital police is a vital public institution. The police torture issue is linked to this. It's a vital public institutions to every aspect. We are trying sometimes to talk about independence of judiciary. What judiciary can function when if the policing system has collapsed? And I am posing that question to many countries. Some countries can today enjoy a certain greater degree of freedom than some time back, like Indonesia. But go into your issue of policing. When a state has been a military state for over 35 years or more, when the civilian policing was not known, and now when it's starting, and the policing is in a very initial stages, what kind of rule of law we still talking? It's true that there is a certain degree of freedom, but to preserve that freedom and to enable the people to participate in that process, unless the policing system is put into a proper shape, nothing functions. When 100 warrants are not being executed on a particular accused, what is the system that is there? And why do you allow ourselves to be played fool with like this? Partly because I think we have taken these things as normal. It's one of the most difficult things in the less developed countries to get the issue of torture being discussed. Because, the police station is a place where people don't want to go and see whether democracy exists. They will like to have a parliament and say people are shouting about in the parliament, therefore there is a democracy. But it is to the police station that you should go and see whether democracy is there. Because that is where people are confronted every day, and that is where the law is either enforced or not enforced. And the heart of democracy is the rule of law. And when the policing is ignored completely, and we keep on living, when we know our police are corrupt as it can be, when we know that they are on day in and day out torturing the people, when we know that people don't want to go to police stations to complain about their problems, when we know that every person who goes to complain about crime is, further harassed in that whole process, when they have to pay bribes, both sides have to pay bribes. The women, we had a survey of women in number of countries, and we put a question: will you, if you have a problem, go to a police station? And every woman's answer that came back was, if you go there, we will have more problems than what we have here. We are trying to eliminate domestic violence. And where do we go to complain about domestic violence? To the police. And there you begin another circle of not only destroying your whole lives, the misery to which so many people have been put to, either directly or indirectly. You have a problem, you have no place to go and complain and get it done. So what is that democracy that we are talking about? So it is the time, we are not raising an extraneous question. We are raising some question that can be ignored. In our countries, the struggle for elimination of torture is the struggle for rule of law, is the struggle for democracy. If we make inch of progress in elimination of torture, we make a mile of progress in freedom of speech. That is the truth. Everywhere the violence goes down from the state agencies, people begin to talk. Our people have enough wisdom to solve their problems. We don't need legislators for the purpose of solving all the problems of economy and everything. Those are things many people can participate to resolve. But what the people cannot resolve is have the ability to participate, to get the ability to participate. That is where the legislator can play a very important role in trying to find ways out of it. Now if you ask, how am I to know more about torture? It's very simple. Just give once a month few hours of your time to that issue. You let it known to the people of your areas, if not for the country, that if you come to me to talk about torture, I am willing to listen to you. You will see flood of people coming to you. And we can assure you, human rights organizations will bring the people to you. And if you listen to 10 stories faithfully, then you will know what am I believing in. What is this knowledge that I claim that I have about my society? That is what happened to us. When we started this, we have seen the crisis in Sri Lanka. We have seen the crisis in Cambodia. And then we were asking questions, what is a way to get to know more into this? And then we began to get people to go and talk to the victims and get these stories. One after the other when it comes, we are not merely knowing the story about how a person was tortured, but we know how our courts function, how our entire administrative system functions, or it doesn't function, how it doesn't function. The story of our society can easily be revealed with 10 or 15 of cases of torture if you faithfully listen to these people. So as legislators, you are the representative of the people. Give time for people to come and talk to you about this problem. Give them 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, and then review. And then you will begin to see that how much the people are willing to cooperate, how much people are willing to dare to face. We have had 2 people being killed because they wanted to pursue their complaints against torture. Nobody encouraged them. They encouraged other people and said, well, we need support. Despite of those deaths, even those families, they have not gone back. Hundreds of torture victims who came for these cases, about 10, 12 years of pursuing these cases in courts, they have got nothing. But they have not got discouraged. They have at least have a feeling we are fighting. If it was not for that, they will not be fighting for this. So hundreds of people, you go to the YouTube today in Sri Lanka, you go to the YouTube, about 150 people have already spoken openly. This is what happened to me. So the approach is, what we are calling is, please listen to these people. Listen to the victims. And you will have the strategy to fight it. If this message is carried, and if we can bring a closer knowledge by the legislators about the problem, I think they will themselves find the ways to collaborate with each other. We don't need to create organizations. Organizations come spontaneously when you begin to realize the problem. And the basic obligation, basic decent obligation of anybody who takes up the position to represent people is at least to take trouble to know their problem. And that is the plea of this meeting. Please try to know how much of torture there is, how much that has defeated every purpose for which our societies have claimed that we are trying to struggle. Realize that the obstacle to democracy is somewhere, not in these places. And you will be able to unleash the potential necessary to fight dictators. You can't fight dictators with speeches. You can fight dictators if you listen to people who have suffering down there, and if you give them the expression, then for that, no dictator throughout history has ever had a solution. It is possible to fight dictators. It is possible to eliminate torture. Thank you.